Ahoy! That's probably not how you spell it. All right. It's a little bit of an attacking the darkness stream. I'm a little early, so I'm just kind of chilling for a second. Like I was saying, I was talking with Ben Garrett, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. If you haven't checked out Haunted Cosmos, this is a great podcast. My kids love this. These guys are great. Oh, there we are. Yeah. So I was talking with Ben. We had a really good conversation. I you know you listen to people, you listen to their podcasts, and you're like, okay, I think I could hang out with this person. I think I could talk to this person, and that's the cool thing about podcasts, and that's the cool thing about kind of this little corner and what Paul Vanderklay does, and what the this little corner people do, is you kind of get you kind of get to know people through their content in a weird way. I know that you know. Um, it seems maybe like it's not authentic, but I wonder if we're challenging that a little bit. Oi is the best way to answer the phone. I agree. Yeah, I like. All right, so we'll catch up. Oh man, we've got some catching up to do. I don't even really know where to start. Part of me wants to start with this really lame thread that I posted that nobody looked at, which is totally fine, but it'll just get me started talking. It'll get my throat kind of going. I watched a really cool interview with and this was cool because it was J.K. Rowling. Um, in like in like 1998, she had published book one. She was publishing book two, and book three was being written. And so I carved through this conversation, and each little clip that I thought was poignant. I tried to build a thread, and then I totally messed myself up, and I kept responding to the second post in the thread, which is okay, just me being a boomer, I guess. I thought it was really interesting because she tells the story of she's just on a bus and she's looking out the window and she just says, Harry Potter just came to me, and it was the clearest stroke of inspiration that I've ever had. It just like fell in from the cosmos. And so that like initially just intrigued me because, as you know, I have been kind of on uh, exploring the power of story, exploring exactly what story is. Um, and Kale and I, the reason I tagged Kale in this is that Kale and I had some conversations around this, the magic of the gospel in Harry Potter. And as I was listening to J.K. Rowling, I still feel like I'm saying the name wrong. It was it is clear to me that she very much planned things out, but then there's this dance between the things that are planned out and the things that were just sort of raw inspiration. And so I may do kind of a deeper dive on this. I just thought it was really interesting. Uh, she sort of conceives Harry Potter, but then she says Harry Potter chose her, so maybe it was the other way around. This structure, and this is what Kayla and I talked about. I've talked about this before, but there's this very clear sort of chiastic structure, and I think that's one of the reasons for me. It seems like the books are sort of this sort of inspired, and when I say that, um, I don't can't see the post. I'll clean it up and maybe I'll do a video on this. Let me know if that sounds interesting. Just again exploring the power of story and the nature of story, and for me it's interesting because it seems like there was a whole generation of young people that needed to be sort of enchanted by a story, a world. We are created for wonder, and this is true of children more than adults. We grow old and our creator is younger than we are still. It's sort of a G.K. Chesterton kind of quote. When in the interview she says that she was asked where did she get the ideas from, and has to admit that it's a mystery. She doesn't know where the ideas come from, and she says that's a really boring answer. And I thought, well, that's the most intriguing part is that we don't know where or for her, she doesn't know where the inspiration comes from. Now, for me, I would think God. We are co-creators with God, and so we create. We're meant to create, and there is sort of this common grace that even though she's not even really a Christian, she's not trying to write some sort of Christian thing. There are themes in Harry Potter which are clearly self-sacrificial and whatnot. And so I just thought that was interesting. Again, I may do a full video on that if that sounds interesting to anybody else. We're catching up. We might be attacking the darkness. So I guess to catch up really, we would go back to this video 9 days ago, Jewish Traditions and the Christian Messiah. This is a conversation David and I had. And I almost called it Jewish Traditions of the Christian Messiah, but I felt like that would maybe upset some people. But it seems like maybe I didn't avoid that. I think that, what am I doing? Help me. It seems that it's doing what it should do, which is generate conversation and provoke thoughts. And it was very thought-provoking for me, and I appreciate that Jacob was interested in engaging with it. I might actually bring up Jacob's post from earlier. Let me see if I can do that. Because again, that would give you some context to where we are, and I'm definitely processing this, and so this is me.
I'm gonna use
still learning a little bit. Let me see if I find his post. Yeah. Okay. So. Nope.
And
nope. Sorry. Give me a second. I know how to do this, guys. I can be a podcaster. So Jacob, he sends out the post a day ago. Should I make a response video to this? David usually doesn't misrepresent Judaism as much as most Christians. Interesting sort of, I said, please do. I can't speak for David, but it definitely felt like we could have had a third person in the room, so to speak, in the sense that both David and I are coming at the conversation from a Christian perspective, not a Jewish one. And yet we're sort of exploring the very Jewish roots that Christianity has. And so, in the room, we did do a follow-up conversation, but, again, there's ongoing conversation around this. Now, this is where things kind of, I guess, I will try to sort of... I would like to try and foster good dialogue, good dialogue around meaningful things that we all find meaningful. I don't understand really this comment. I think it's funny how the stated end goal was like, let's have the Jews verify our Torah knowledge, even though they disagree about Christ, but also, I don't know flummery about the Torah or the Gospels. Kezi, I think you should. There's a lot to unpack. Appreciate that. Let him have it. Let him have it. What does that mean, was my response. And so Jacob says, I'm not sure you realize how offensive, I'm reading this for the first time, that discussion was, which is not strange. Christians often have no clue how offensive their attitude towards Judaism is. I have a deep appreciation for Judaism, so if that's offensive, I am confused. You don't like my words or something, that's fine. And then, David comes and says, we could talk it out. We could, but I also think this deserves a double-barreled response. That is odd to me. So this is where things get a little strange. I would love to have good faith dialogue. I think that there would be some parameters in order to do that. And so I said, if I rename my live stream Jews Behaving Badly, would I get a fair shake from the algorithm? No, probably people would think that this is sort of anti-Semitic or something, but it's perfectly okay for a Jewish man to create a live stream that says Christians are behaving badly, because we can take it out on the Christians, right? They're fair game. We can just do that. And nobody gets offended by that. Nobody's offended. Now, I'm offending for appreciating and acknowledging the Jewish foundations of my faith. And I hope that's clear. Again, I'm saying this to try to help people understand. Now, I do find it strange, some of the response. Now, I think there was other response that was really kind. I think, I think it was mixed, I guess. It was mixed. What's up, Upcycle? Good to see you, man. And certainly my goal on a podcast is to have meaningful dialogue. And I felt like my conversation with David was very meaningful. It was meaningful to us. And so I guess I'm navigating this a little bit carefully, maybe not, hopefully not too carefully, because we need to say what needs to be said. But in order to foster good dialogue. Well, thanks, Ups. Love that. Thanks for the membership. I keep saying this, but I need to get more creative with the membership stuff. I hope you guys appreciate it. Yeah, I'm here kind of part-time, and I will, I think because of that, I need to get kind of creative with how to do membership stuff. So, okay. So Christians behaving badly. I do want to play a little bit of a clip, because I want Jacob to speak for himself. And if you didn't catch this, I will leave a link to it, and you can catch it. I think it's worth the listen. It's long. It's 2.5, maybe 3 hours long. So bravo to everybody that participated. And again, my goal again would be sort of dialogue. So are we there? Okay. Do we want to jump into this? I think, okay. So meta. Yes, this is a new form of dialogue. David's with us, so shout out to David. It really is a new form of dialogue. It's like David and I made a video. Jacob had conversation about it, and then we sort of make other. And maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe that's boring for some people. I find it interesting. And you can follow the thread, and hopefully if you only catch a piece of it, you're not totally lost. But again, so Michael popped in at one point and basically tried to say, hey, and Michael's a Christian man. It feels very unfair. Yeah, it's like Inception, but with YouTube videos. And Twitter threads. Shout out to Mostly Not Working. I mean, if you follow those Twitter threads, I mean, that is Inception, because it's like thread upon thread. And what Michael was saying was that, you're saying you want to have a good faith dialogue, but then it does not seem like it is. So we say Christians are behaving badly for having a discussion, and yet we don't want. Holy crap, Ups! Wow, man. Wow, thank you, man. I appreciate you, brother. I really do. It's a crazy world out there. Yeah, I appreciated this conversation. And David, I heard that you were in here at the beginning, and I need to go back and listen, because it does sound like Jacob sort of unpacked some of his approach. So that's good. Man, so I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys being here as I sort through this. And I guess here's what I'll try to say this, and then we'll listen to Jacob. It sounds like, So I hopped in as Jacob was talking about the Trinity. Let's just play it, and then I'll get my thoughts. But it seems like there is a little bit of, at least what Michael is talking about, sort of not fair ground. So maybe, and we want to have good faith dialogue. That's what we want. That's what's needed, right? We can't have these conversations if it's like, hey, come to this conversation, but you have to play by my rules. So I don't know. Let me know what you think.
Well said. Look, I believe that Christians believe in three gods. Now, if you cannot countenance, yes, of course you can ask a question, Pete. We're
Jacob, the
responding to
first line of the Nicene Creed. We believe in one God.
yeah, cute. You don't actually believe in one God.
Okay. So, and Andrew, so this is where Jacob and I started our conversation actually on Twitter. I said, I don't think you understand the Trinity because you're saying Christian, whatever. So you hear that, right? Okay, so Christians are polytheists. So here I am. I'm not a Christian. I'm putting my philosophical hat on. Okay, so I'm pretending to be a Jewish man looking at Christianity. You are polytheist. I'm not saying I think you're polytheist. You are polytheist. Trinity is polytheism. That's what you are. And you have to understand that that's what I believe. And it's okay for me to represent you that way. It's okay for me to tell you that you're a polytheist. And even when Andrew tries to clarify and quotes the Nicene, that's cute, but you don't really believe that. We heard that, right? And that's where I'm like, okay, man, like, all right.
The fact, like, if you can't allow me to actually portray how I view things, and without calling that being dishonest, that's you
I
just
don't.
living in a certain like that's you living with a privilege, right? And it goes back to what I was saying from the very beginning. Like, Christians constantly are attacking Judaism without even recognizing that they're attacking Judaism.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, and so again, you can sort of say, yeah, we can attack the Christians. They're fair game. Muslims, Jews, everybody can attack. But then when I say, so I said something in my conversation with David that I will get to, but I wanted so we have that. So here's what Christians believe: the Trinity is polytheism. No, the Trinity is not polytheism. And when somebody tries to correct that and actually say, like, as a creed of the Christian faith, it's like, we believe in one God. It's like, that's cute, but you don't really believe in that. That we got to get past that. And I'll leave a comment here for Jacob, because I don't, it's like, it feels a little bit unfair, to like, okay, I'm going to pause Jacob and then I'm going to say my thing. But, in the moment, I'm listening to Jacob and I'm really trying to listen and I'm really trying to understand his perspective. And so now that I've sort of chewed on this conversation a little bit, you're kind of getting the sort of me kind of having chewed on it. And so, because I want to have good faith dialogue, I'm going to try to say something, and then if I say it clearly enough, I'm gonna leave Jacob a comment and hope that he can understand my perspective a little bit more clearly. Okay, let's get to this one. Let's see what happens.
And a part of that is, in fact, like, okay, if you're asking me to explain the Seder to you, I will explain the Seder to you. But if I know that you're a Christian and you're going to sit there and you're going to say, this is all about Jesus, it's like, I would be failing to explain the Seder to you if I don't explain, no. This is all about how the Messiah has not yet come. All right? We eat the bitter herb that the Messiah has not come. We eat the unleavened bread because the Messiah has not come. Mm-hmm. It is the bread of affliction because the Messiah has not come. Right? We are reliving our slavery because the Messiah has not come. we talk about the plagues because the Messiah has not come, right? And if you walk away from the Seder, like this is all about Jesus, you've obviously missed the entire whole point, right? Because I understand where you're coming from.
Okay. So, so I think what Michael was getting at earlier on in the podcast, in this live stream, was it doesn't feel right that you can say that I'm a polytheist and then not allow me to say that the Seder is about Jesus. Now, I will clarify this a little bit, because in my conversation with David, I was telling a story about a time when I was probably a Christian for about 5 years or so, and I'll catch up on chat here in a second. So I was kind of newly a Christian, and I went to a Passover Seder, and they were drawing connections between the Seder tradition and Jesus. And as I was telling that story, I was recalling a moment at that Seder where I was thinking, this is all about Jesus. So I think and so I'm just telling my story. So Jacob's taking that as though I'm sort of saying some sort of orthodox statement of like, this is all about Jesus. Now, in a way I am, but I think what I should have said, if I was to give it sort of like an orthodox statement, I would say, I believe this is all about Jesus. Or a lot of this is pointing towards Jesus. Now, is it about other things? Yes. I mean, Jacob is pointing to those things. So it's about those things. And pointing to Jesus is not saying it's not about these things also. So that's where I think, for me, I could have had a more sort of sophisticated way of talking about this, and I will try to do that in the future. But as I was reflecting on that story in that moment, sitting in my first Passover Seder, having this aha moment of like, this is all about Jesus. So there's that. Now, so I hear what Jacob is saying. Because it's the same problem that I have with the Trinity. It's like, don't misrepresent the Trinity and tell me what I believe. Well, don't misrepresent the Seder and tell me it's all about Jesus. So we have that point. I think we're there. Now, the part that I think really needs some honesty is it's not unfair for a Christian person to look back at the Seder and go, wow, this looks like it's pointing to Jesus. Because when you do that, there's some very clear connecting points. So that's honesty. That's a Christian person looking at the Jewish Passover Seder and going, The difference is knowing full well that Christians are not polytheists and still claiming that they are. That's where it feels like this is not, you're saying good faith dialogue, but you're not really willing to have good faith dialogue. If you were, you would say, I believe that Christians are polytheists. That's just my belief. I know you guys talk about it differently, but it seems to me from my vantage point that you all are polytheists. But it was very clear, because when Andrew tried to clarify, that was laughed off, and it's like, ha, 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 yeah, right, you are a polytheist. End of story. That's where we got to get over that. That's going to be a problem. I want to, these conversations could be beautiful, and maybe, like, I'll just be honest, maybe Jacob and I are not the people to have these conversations. We're just like we're too thick-headed or whatever. I can speak for myself there. I won't say. So that's what I want to say. That's what I want to say about this. I want to have good faith dialogue. I think that these conversations could be really, really awesome. And I think TLC could be the community to have these good and awesome conversations. What's up? Mostly not working. You got a shout out earlier on in the stream. Hopefully you caught that. and again, maybe it should not be starting with Jacob and I. Maybe we're not the right people to do this. So there's that. That needs to be sort of the starting off point. You have to understand that as a Christian person, as I'm looking at a Passover Seder and making the connection to Jesus the Messiah, it's not like I'm not trying to be unfaithful to the tradition. I'm actually trying to honor the tradition. And you may not like my conclusion, but that doesn't mean I'm misrepresenting the tradition. I'm not representing it maybe the way Jacob would or somebody else would. I fully can admit that, which is why to clarify, I should say, yeah, it seems like, or I believe that this is all pointing to Jesus. But yeah, I mean, I think that's okay. I mean, I guess I don't know why that would be offensive. So if that is offensive, help me understand why that would be offensive. I do think that many Christians, I think Christians would learn a lot by having conversations with Jewish people about their faith, and their communal faith, not understanding that, yes, they have two different belief systems. But I think that we could learn a lot from each other. I can speak for me. I would love to learn more about the Jewish roots of my Christian faith. I would love that. And I guess I can understand, and maybe this is to David's point, because I'm not trying to ignore the chat, but like, I can understand why maybe Jewish people are not super excited to have that conversation. Like, no, like, I'm not having that conversation with you because you are whatever, you're a sort of a heretic, or you could in some way, you could think of it as, I can understand why that would be the case. But I want to have these conversations, and so hopefully we can foster them. Hopefully we can navigate through the sticky parts. There was another, Jacob had a point, and I can't remember the words that he was using, and maybe I should try to like search it, because he was talking about like how to have these conversations, and it's like we could all be singing Kumbaya, and not getting anything done, because then we're not really understanding each other. And I fully agree with that. But I don't remember. I wish there was a key word that I could remember. Yeah, Yosef's audio was a little hard for me to hear. Well, and let's just continue it. Let's just continue the conversation then. If if Yosef wasn't able to finish his thought there, I would just love to hear that. Who else? There was other people in the live stream that seemed to be, willing to sort of have the conversation. And to David's point here, because it was brought up. Sandy eventually brought this up, and I kind of responded to it, but then she had to go, I guess. So hopefully Sandy, hopefully I was like, you understand, like, hopefully I didn't offend Sandy. But we did take their book and call it old. I don't like the old. I don't like calling it the Old Testament. I do, because that's just it. It's like it's just the language, if there's a better way to have the conversation, if that's going to be like a stumbling block or something like that, I have no problem. Like, it feels weird. Like, I look at for what I have in my tradition, the Old and New Testament as a library. It is a Bible. It is a library of books. And so there you go. That's kind of my thoughts on Jacob. And that I really do hope that we can have more good faith conversation. I felt like that one was okay. I think Jacob and I, just because of Twitter, maybe didn't start off on the right foot, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I had a second here. I had a second today to jump in and chat with him, because there are certainly parts of his approach that I really do appreciate, and I think I could learn from them. Yeah. Old Testament feels, it's like, it is old. I mean, it's ancient. It's freaking ancient. So what, just for a second, just because I do think there is beautiful dialogue that could be had between the Jews and the Christians in the corner and anybody else. I mean, Michael, Jeremy and I were talking about the fact that there's no sort of people that are coming from the Mormon side of things. There's certainly some atheists. There's other people of other beliefs, and like for me, guys, like I really love hearing from people. I do. Like, we're not gonna agree, and that's like, I don't know. Like, look, there's how many people are there on the earth? There's like 6 billion people or something like that. What is it? 7-8 billion people? You know how many worldviews that is? That's 8 billion worldviews. Nobody has the same worldview. Nobody has the exact same belief system. We're all gonna find points where we disagree, but the fun is in the discovery of new ideas that you share with people. Because it's like, man, it's clearly meaningful to Jacob and the others in the corner. It's clearly meaningful to David. It's clearly meaningful to me and the others participating in this. It implies that it's the previous sort of testament. There is that sort of kind of distinction, I guess. Previous covenant. See, this is where we get into sort of this sort of systematic theology stuff, which I do kind of. If you've watched this podcast, if you've listened to this podcast enough, you know that I have a very unsophisticated way of talking about these things. I don't go deep into systematic theology. I don't go deep into like covenant theology. I'm not like I've said this before. I'm not a very good. I come from a Reformed sort of tradition, and that's within the last 8 to 10 years. Okay, so that's actually still fairly new for me. I think I didn't realize I was Reformed, and then I was like, oh, that's what you call that? So I'm not, like, I didn't grow up in the church. So I do have kind of an unsophisticated way of talking about this stuff. And you know, I like the hill, I'm not going to die on the hill of the Old and the New Testament. Yeah. It's the Old Testament. It's the previous testament. Yeah. I have never been more interested in the book of Romans than I am today after talking with Jacob and reflecting on this conversation. I think, again, people have always kind of approached the book of Romans from like the deeply theological side of things. Like, this is rich theology, which it is. But it's also a wrestling with the Jewish and the Gentile converts to Christianity. And we are a mixed people. Jesus pulls people from all parts of the globe. This is Acts chapter 2. It is the inverse of the Tower of Babel. And it is a beautiful thing. And yet it comes with its challenges, obviously. And so Romans is like this wonderful dialogue, or Paul is trying to get this Roman church to understand one another, the Jewish and Gentile members of the church to understand each other. And I almost want to read the whole chapter. I feel like my throat would give out. But I would encourage you to read this, and maybe I should for context's sake. God has not rejected his people. I say then, God has not rejected his people. Has he? May it never be. For I too am an Israelite, descendant of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people who he foreknew. Or do you not know that the scripture says in the passage about Elijah, how he pleads with God against Israel? Lord, they have killed your prophets, and they have torn down your altars, and I alone am left, and they are seeking they are seeking my life. But what is the divine response to him? I have kept for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. In the same way, there has also come to be, at this present time, a remnant according to God's gracious choice. But if it is by grace, it's no longer on the basis of works. Otherwise, grace is no longer grace. What then? What Israel is seeking, it has not obtained, but those who were chosen obtained it, and the rest were hardened. Just as written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes to see not, and ears to hear not, down to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap, and a stumbling block and a retribution for them. Let their eyes be darkened and see not, and behind their back forever. Now, it sounds really harsh. And I can understand why that would sound harsh. I say then, they did not stumble so as to fall, did they? May it never be. But their transgression of salvation has come to the Gentiles to make them jealous. This is what I've been thinking about this a bit. Hey, plebis. Greeks also call it the Old Testament. Yeah. Galatians 3:17. Yeah. Okay. Where does he say, beloved? Man, if somehow I might move to jealousy of my fellow countrymen to save them, for their rejection is the reconciliation of the world. What will their acceptance be but life from the dead? If the first piece of dough is holy, the lump also. If the root is holy, the branches are too also. And this is where I say I have a deep appreciation for this history. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, and became a partaker with them of the rich root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. But if you are arrogant, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root supports you. You know, that's more what we're getting at. Not in arrogance, but in a deep appreciation. Anyway, he goes on. For if you were cut off from what is by nature a wild olive tree and were grafted on to a contrary nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will those who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? For I do not want you, brethren, to be uninformed at this mystery, so that you will not be wise in your own estimation. Again, that's the arrogance part, that a partial hardening has happened to Israel to fulfill until the fullness of the Gentiles has come. So Israel will be saved, just as written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He also calls Israel God's beloved, and I skipped over it, and I'm sorry for that, but that's meaningful, you know? And what's also meaningful is that hopefully I'm not misrepresenting by saying this, but Israel is always meant to be mixed. There was Joseph's wife was a Gentile. Her children were mixed. The bride of Christ is a not dissimilar. Yeah, okay. And so to David's point, this is why we need to have these conversations. I do appreciate Jacob for sort of agitating me, because it gets me to think. It gets me to think more clearly. I've spent time, I've mulled over this conversation because it's important. Now I need to balance that with the regular, life that I have of being a husband and a father and having a job, and yet, it's deeply meaningful for me. So I appreciate Jacob. I appreciate provocative conversation. There's a part of the there's a part of that hideous strength it's the third book in the C.S. Lewis Ransom trilogy, where there's one member of their community that is just not a believer in whatever they're doing. They've got this task, and they're trying to find Merlin and all this other stuff, and he just thinks it's all just crazy. He thinks it's just so dumb. And what Ransom says is he needs to be a part of our community because everyone needs this skeptic to sort of keep you like accountable to your beliefs. And so I think what David is saying in the chat, Jacob as a fighter, a trickster, I'm assuming you're talking about Jacob in two senses there. He will sharpen you by bothering you. You always need to have a right kind of skeptic in your life to sort of challenge you and provoke you. And I think that those could be really good conversations, because I do think, and I can kind of speak from sort of the whatever Western evangelical community that I'm sort of a part of, maybe begrudgingly a part of, is that it needs to be woken up. It needs to understand that, like, I think I said this when I was talking with Ben earlier. It was like, now I've lost my train of thought. We have gotten so accustomed to sort of shallow preaching and just give me the takeaway. Let me go home and let me go watch football. Like, just give me the nugget, without really just unpacking the story. Why is it? How many Western churches preach from the Old Testament, right? How many? It's rarer than it should be, and part of the reason is that you have to cover a lot of text to get the full context, to really unpack it, and yet there's something in the story that prepares your soul to receive the message more faithfully, to receive the message more truthfully, than if you have this sort of Western, maybe sort of like modern approach of just give me the takeaway, just give me the thing that I'm supposed to learn so that I can pass the test. It's like, no, I'm not going to give that to you, because then I would not be a good storyteller. And it seems that God is a great storyteller, and he's letting the story work on you, and he's letting the story work and work and work, and we need to recapture that. And I think one of the ways to do that, I think honestly, is like conversations like David and I had. I think that's one of the ways that we can recapture that. So it could be, let's see, I you know what? I actually wrote down some notes. I just had a conversation with a charismatic, and their experience was that it was all fake, being in a community with only acceptance of the miraculous. And not like the deep, meaningful theological wrestling. It kind of goes both ways, right? It's like we've accepted sort of two easy paths. It's like the charismatic, which just chases sort of the experience, and I can say that because I sort of started in charismatic churches. But then the theologian who really wants to figure it out, who's overlooking the miraculous as though it's woo woo nonsense. We gotta have both. It's the master and the emissary. That's story works on both hemispheres of the brain. That's why I think it's powerful. Now that does kind of take me into, I'm gonna fail the Grim Grizz test if I don't get to the actual title and thumbnail. I needed to unpack the stuff from David and my conversation and the stuff from the live stream today a little bit, just because it was in my head. I was not gonna be able to get to anything else if it wasn't for that. So I don't know, man. I would encourage everybody to read Romans with fresh eyes. Story prepares the soul to receive knowledge and wisdom. So the egregore that's going to defeat, what did I call this? Dang, I should remember what I call my live streams. Let's see, what did I call it? Help me. How to defeat the political egregore with the compelling story of the Bible. Oh, compelling. I think on Twitter I used the term fractal story because I really do think it's this, what do they call it? A Mendelbrot? I don't know what it's called. Again, I have sort of an unsophisticated way of thinking about these things, so forgive me. Fractal story of the Bible, the Mendelbrot set. Yeah, a narrow path between those two extremes. Discernment is key. We actually covered discernment in church on Sunday. It's in the zeitgeist, so you're right. Yeah, good evening. All right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for being here. Man. If you haven't checked out Alex's stuff, buddy, I have not listened in a while. I need to get back into it, but I just like the way you talk, man. I know that sounds weird, but like when I've heard some of your stuff, you're just, man, you're very thoughtful, and I appreciate the stuff that you're putting out. So keep after it. Hopefully I can engage here soon and leave you a comment, let you know I found your stuff. Where was I? I was reading my notes. That's really weird. There's two faces of me, and I'm getting, okay. Turning your attention, okay. So story is powerful enough to defeat the egregore. Okay, what is the egregore? It's the demon that manifests out of a shared consciousness or a shared belief system. And when I was listening to this Trump, Elon, when I was listening to this Trump, Elon, I actually didn't cover any of the conversation in the episode that I did. I just talked about it. I guess that's what you do. There was just this fixation at times with Trump just talking about how bad Kamala was. Kamala's so bad, blah, 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 blah. And it was like Kamala. And it's like, okay, so now you've just turned everybody's attention to Kamala. Maybe you're trying to do that in a negative way. But think about this. How did Trump beat Hillary in 2016? Trump beat Hillary in 2016 because everybody was talking about Trump. Everybody was talking about Trump kind of in a negative way. All the people that thought Trump was going to be a good president kept that to themselves, and nobody was talking. The people that we're talking about were all talking about it in negative. And so this Trump sort of egregore sort of manifested it, you could say, in some ways. And so the danger there is that there's this political sort of egregore coming out again. And again, in this episode, I pointed out, because Russel Brand's commentary I thought was really good, she's not really a substantive candidate. She's a ghost. She's not doing interviews. She's not putting out any real policy. She's a ghost, right? So like the crossover with the egregore idea was just right there. And so how does story defeat an egregore? Well, story is powerful enough to turn your attention, right? That would be the idea. You defeat a egregore by turning the attention of the community. And so story is one of those. One of the reasons that nations often crumble is that they lose a sense of a shared narrative. They lose their sense of national story. I did a podcast on that many, many moons ago, engaging with some Francis Schaeffer stuff. I mean, if I was really quick, I could probably find it, but I'm sure it's annoying to watch me scroll all the way through this, but maybe it helps my thought process. It was one of these. Israel's past. It was early, man. It was an early. I think it was Freedom from Chaos and Tyranny with Jordan Peterson, Francis Schaeffer, or it was the Bible and the Fall. It was this one. It was the Bible and the Fall of Nations. I think in this one we talk about the way sort of things collapse, and the loss of a shared story is one of the last things to go. And so stories are powerful for turning the collective consciousness, you might say. So there you go. Joe had a thing about a time machine. This actually ties back into the conversation about Jacob and Jewish traditions and where we go from here. So let me listen to this and see if I remember why I wanted to talk about it.
Systems, and they believe that these things are donations. That's literally how they describe them, as donations. If you knew that this is a long road, you can't just show up and give people time machines. It's a long road for these people to develop the sophistication, the cultural advancement, the intellectual capacity to understand their place in the universe, and that they're not there yet, and they're still engaging in lies and manipulation and propaganda. Their entire society is built on a ship of fools. If you looked at that, you would say they're not ready. This is what we do. We slowly introduce ourselves, slowly over time, make it more and more common, and that's what you're seeing. What you're seeing is when you have things like the commander.
Okay, so I know he's talking about aliens, and I'm going to do the hard segue over to the Bible. But that whole idea of basically slowly releasing... Excuse me. The allergies, man. Slowly releasing the information so that people are prepared. Now, I don't think of this so much as aliens, but I do think about this in the context of Ephesians 6 and the powers and the principalities. I do think there are things going on. I think it's too simplistic and too materialistic of a way of thinking about it if you're just going to say it's little green men, right? That's just too... It's not quite what it is. There's more to it. Okay. And what you need to do is slowly sort of introduce people to the concept so they get used to it, so that when, like, you can't just hand people a time machine, is what he said. Now, again, hard segue, but isn't that really what's going on as we approach the second coming of Christ? There is the story is working on the soul of humanity, and it's taking time. And so later on, and I really enjoyed Sam Tiedemann. I apologize for having not really.
These are the.
Yeah, well, I guess we get a free ad. So annoying. Sorry, it's annoying. Not engaging with Sam's content. I thought that was really good. And I'm kind of, I do like Tim Mackey's approach. I know that there's some controversy around him. I didn't follow that. Some people find Tim Mackey a controversial figure, and I don't really know why, so I can't really speak to that. But everything I've heard him say is pretty thought-provoking. And so when he's describing the Bible, he's talking about the process of how the Bible came to be and how it was revealed over time, and how now we're in the story is sort of working on the soul, and it's preparing, I think, it's preparing us for the eventual coming of Christ, like the second coming, he's going to bring, literally a city descends out of heaven. I don't know if that's really my interpretation at this point, but it's beautiful. Like, the vision is amazing. And David and I did kind of talk about the book of Revelation a little bit. And so naturally God would choose story to reveal himself because it has this preparation effect on the soul. A good story works on the soul and allows you to see things that you otherwise would not have seen before. A la our conversations with our friends in the corner, Jacob Federecci, etc. You're going to be able to see things in a way you didn't see before as the story works its way through. And yes, he's talking about sort of these donations of these alien crafts. And I don't know what you guys think about this. If you're still with me here at the 57-minute mark, I think that's what we're at. What do you think about this? I basically said that the Bible is an alien donation. It's alien in the sense that it is not native. It's not native to us. We didn't build this thing. We didn't make it up. It was given to us by God, who is strange and wonderful and outside of our experience. He's infinite and holy, and yet we believe that the story is faithful and true to tell us truth about God. And so in a sense, it's not that much different than like, oh, we got these like donations from these aliens so that we could learn about technology. I mean, the book is a technology. It's a piece of technology. It's a slow release mechanism for infinite information. Like, am I crazy? Maybe not. I don't know. Like, God, who is infinite, is revealing His true self to us in the Word. So, yeah, it's a technology in a way. It's kind of the first technology. If you go back to Adam and Eve, God gave Adam essentially a message to give to Eve, a story. Adam was supposed to tell Eve about the garden and all the things, and not to eat of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. Essentially, that's a tool to communicate truth to someone. And so I think there's something to that. Now, YouTube has not been sort of kind to my channel since I posted this one on the Egregore. So we'll see where this Joe Rogan, Tim Mackey one goes. But yeah, like predictive programming almost. It's like a I mean, it really is. It's like, so Cassandra, what I was thinking about it at one point was like, isn't it kind of like DNA? Because DNA has the information encoded in it, but then you have, and I'm not a biologist, so forgive me, but like RNA, like is like in the instruction manual. It's like, this is how you read the code. And story is both of those things. And when the Haunted Cosmos episode comes out, I go into that. It's like story has a structure that allows you to, it's sort of like story teaches you how to interpret the story. So it's got both the DNA and the RNA inside it. It's got the information, but it's also got the instructions on how to understand the information. So it kind of is like tilling the soil of the psyche. I like that. Yeah, but even like from sort of like a classical standpoint, it would be the heart, the mind, and the spirit. And Emily, as a musician, that's where spirit and music are highly are connected. David says preparation for heaven, or preparation H for short. Got him. That's good. Preparation for heaven. Well, and what is heaven but an ongoing process of understanding our Creator in more and more depth? And that's why, and thank you, Grim Grizz, I think I'm delivering on the title and the thumbnail. That's why it's a fractal pattern. It's this Mandelbrot thing. Sorry, I know it's annoying. That's why you've got this Mandelbrot pattern in the background here. Is as you zoom in, the pattern is repeated, right? We're going to continue to learn more and more. And it's almost like Russian nesting dolls. It's like once you open one, you realize there's more inside of it. Once you zoom into that Mandelbrot, it's like, oh, the pattern is here again. And it's this beautiful structure. Further up and further in, the more you learn. Out of the heavens versus, yeah, I mean, and again, and this is part of sort of like the re-enchantment or we need to recapture the biblical cosmology. Like, we think of outer space as this blank, empty thing, and it's like, and I don't know, maybe outer space is, but don't let that deceive you that there's not a heavenly reality. That maybe our solar system and the stars and all that is but a reflection of, or sort of leading us to that. We're seeing through a glass dimly. Here, I'm going to move the chat so I'm not so like, I'm not creaking my neck over here. I'm losing it. Oh shoot! Now I lost my notes. This is where I need the third. Here, this is probably better. Yeah, I need to. Forgive me. Okay. Now what did I do? Got it. But I'm back. The word is alive. Yeah, it is living and active. It's a living word. That's so good. Like, it's DNA, right? Like, we're not crazy. Are we crazy? Am I crazy? If I'm crazy, don't follow me. Yes. Okay. So David was referencing the yeast working its way through the whole lump of dough. Yeah, the process, right? There is a process taking place, and that yeast is working its way through that lump of dough. The story is the lump of dough is being prepared. I mean, we even see this in the New Testament. The bride of Christ is being prepared, right? She's not beautiful yet. We're not a perfect bride yet, but she's being prepared. And I truly believe, like, go back to Romans 11 and just realize that there is a beautiful story that involves every tribe, tongue, and nation. That's the beauty of the bride of Christ, I think. I'm getting all like sort of like preachy and weird or whatever. Where's my thing? We don't need that anymore. Let's just go back to this. Yeah, you guys are on fire, man. I love that. I love the chat right now. Yes, okay, I have mixed feelings about Diana Pasulka on the alien donation speculation. I do as well. I like her, and again, this is part of, in the same way as I appreciate a Jacob Federici in my life, I would appreciate a Diana Pasulka in my life. I'm not going to agree with her on everything. I like the work that she's doing. I think she's doing good work, and I'm going to glean off of that and sort of, and then sort of process it. I'm going to process it through. I think. Yeah, I do get it. Yeah, yes, it's probably okay to be skeptical on that level. Okay. Stephanie Christos did a mini talk on Discord about her class so far with that. Oh, really? Was that the Bridges of Meaning Discord? We're just on an island. It's a pretty cool island. Schizomaxing. Yeah, and it's good that we lean we can kind of lean the other way and maybe even lean on each other in some ways. And again, I go back to this sort of good faith dialogue. If the dialogue is done in actual good faith, it could be beautiful. It could be very, very beautiful. Knowing full well that we're just not going to agree on everything, and that's okay. That's not more. See, that's the Tower of Babel, right? The Tower of Babel says everybody uses the same words, right? Now the whole earth used the same language. Okay, we got that, and the same words. We got that. I brought that up in the Egregore episode, actually. This whole thing where you get all these newscasters all saying the same thing, right? This whole like, we're gonna call it this, we're gonna call it, oh, okay, it was in Grimm's Discord, cool. That's the Tower of Babel. Now, again, Acts 2, the church is the inverse of the Tower of Babel. Everyone is hearing the gospel in their own language. That's beautiful, man. Like, that's beautiful. The nations are not done away with in that heavenly city, in that heavenly vision. Everyone is still hearing in their own native home language. That's not an accident. That's very important. But the Tower of Babel says that we all have to speak the same words, right? That would mean that we have sort of this myopic ideological commitment to just the same thing. And I don't think that's what the church is. I think it's a bunch of people who agree on this, on the person of, like, it's a bunch of people who have come into contact with the person of Christ. And then we're trying to figure out what that means, and we're trying to have conversation about what that means. What's up, ALC? Good to see you. Good to see you. It's getting late, so I appreciate you guys being here. I think that could be beautiful, man. Not it could be. It's going to be beautiful. I mean, I believe. Man. So that's cool. What else did we have? Story prepares the soul. The yeast works its way through the whole. Not loaf. What do you call it? Lump of dough. And so, okay, so I said this. Isn't this principle true for let me see if I can show you guys this. For the full glory of Jesus. I know it's kind of small. That's my idea. A story prepares the soul to receive knowledge, wisdom, and Joe points to the time machine. You can't just hand somebody a time machine. And yeah, could you just come into full view of Christ? Yeah, maybe, but maybe you wouldn't understand what you're looking at. The story prepares the soul. Why are we preparing the soul? Why is the bride being prepared? Because the end is coming. Like, I don't know when, but I think it's like birth pains, you know? That's what Jesus tells us. How could you possibly endure the full glory? You know, that's why I think, you know, story and dialogue are important. Okay, I forgot. I'm on. Let's see. Nope. I want to float this. I guess I can't. I messed myself up now. It is floating. It's just okay. I got what's happening. Anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. Let me know how you guys are feeling about that. Okay. I'm picking up the pieces. I didn't really go into the contrast between the donation of technology and the donation of the Bible. We've talked about that tonight. Okay, so we covered that. Technology is always the temptation of Babel. We've talked about Babel a little bit. Now, what I mean by that is sort of mechanical technology, rather than the word, poetry, story. The Tower of Babel was built with man's hands, right? They didn't use natural stone. They formed the bricks themselves. So there's this temptation of like we discovered this secret knowledge. We found the secret knowledge. There's always that sort of temptation with kind of the serpent or the Tower of Babel or whatever. Okay, I said biblical revelation is kind of like DNA, RNA. All right. That's kind of what I got. So if you guys have anything, yeah, let me know. Hang out maybe for a bit. I need some of that. I need some of that branding. I need some of that goodbye music, you know, to shut things down. But I really do appreciate you guys hanging out. And Ups, if you're still here, man, thank you so much for your generosity. I mean, it blows me away. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for this conversation. This is good. I really have enjoyed some feedback. Thank you for enduring the first part of this. I know that can feel a little bit laborious, but I think it is important. It is important to kind of define your terms clearly, define the rules of engagement clearly. Like, we're going to have a dialogue. We want it to be a good, productive dialogue. And so we can't be playing games, these little tricky games where it's like, no, we can't do that. Everybody comes to the table of Christ at the same level, you know. That's one beautiful thing about it. So yeah, I hope that we can foster that. I hope we can be like Jesus. I hope we can invite people to his table. And I think by doing that, now again, the full view of the glory of Christ is what we were just talking about, right? That's how you defeat the Egregore. You turn your attention and you allow the story to turn your attention, capture your soul, capture your attention, capture your heart, work on you so that what you're attending to is the full glory of Jesus as best as you understand it, right? We don't have perfect knowledge, but we can turn our attention to he who is the way, the truth, and the life. I think that's what we should do. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for helping me attack the darkness, as it were. And I will catch you in the next one.